Hey everybody, this is Trish Kane, CEO and founder of Healerverse. Welcome to the Healerverse Roundtable. Every Friday right now we're doing it at 10:30 a.m. EST. I'm not good at math. Welcome. Healerverse is a platform that I built for spiritual and holistic well-being to support practitioners and their businesses, and for people to be able to find practitioners, events, and courses to heal 24/7 and find friends near them. And when we're traveling, find friends wherever we go and events. And it's a really exciting thing that we're doing here with the Roundtable. We did just bring it back. We revived it because last year we got kicked off Instagram at like 10,000 followers and like Healerverse was booming. So we're just making a comeback with the Roundtable. And today we have such an amazing practitioner named Cosmos. And basically, we're going to give him the spotlight and cannot wait to hear from him. And I'll ask you questions as it goes if you'd like. And it's very open and a very loving space. And I invite everybody to be themselves. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Both full time, so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, moving parts and moving people, but it's what I'm here for. It's why I'm on this planet, and so I enjoy every moment of it, even the hard ones. Yeah, so that's my, I mean, I've, moved around my entire life, so there isn't anywhere that I particularly call home. I like being close to an airport because it means I can get to the next place I'm going. And that's kind of what matters most. But I've been in Southern California for a while now. I have found that it's a good hub, good international airports. I can get to and from most of the places I need to get to pretty quickly. And obviously the entertainment industry's here, so a lot of meetings and the people that I need to be meeting with are here, which is beneficial.
Amazing. So you and I met a couple months back and we were talking about some of the stuff that you are called to practice in the spiritual realm on earth. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So I started doing tarot readings when I was 4 years old. And you can imagine exactly how silly that seems. You're in a place and you see a 4-year-old with a little tarot deck, and you're like, oh, isn't that cute? And then consistently, what would happen is people would get up from the table after their reading, clutching their pearls and looking at my mother like, "What is that? What just happened to me?" And not realizing that there can be depth in a reading, and it has nothing to do with, the biological age of a person. And so I stuck with that, and I did readings until I was about 10. And what I found was that consumerism has consumed so much of spirituality. And when I say consumerism, I don't mean capitalism. What I mean is people's need and desire to have things faster and easier, microwave food and sort of instant coffee and instant everything. And so the demands and their desires out of getting healed were just as fast, where they expected to sit down and get a reading and then their life was all better, or have me read their natal chart, and then tomorrow they had all the answers. And so I started backing away from sort of the existing modalities because I didn't like having to cut through all the stigma and cut through people's misconceptions of what something was to then get to the part where I help them, just to have them then say, well, you mean you're not going to do it all for me? I don't understand. And as anyone who's been a healer or a parent, I'm sure that you guys sort of get what that is. And so for me, I started searching for a new way to serve. And in the meantime, I just was my normal helpful self. I'm an intuit, and so in talking to people, I sort of can tell that they're in a space. And what I did for many years, in fact, was just as I saw people and I knew they needed something, I'd walk up to them on the street and say, "Hey, can I help you with something?" And just sort of start that conversation and send them on their way. And over the course of, I'd say, the next decade or so, it really started to deplete me because I didn't have anything pouring back into me in that space. And I'd been living on my own for a while at that point. And so life became too complicated to be giving everything away. and I understood that I needed to create a shape around my healing and around my gifts that I could continue to serve and hold space for people and yet still make and hold space for myself. And so I ended up creating, a new modality, which I haven't named. I don't know that I ever will. It doesn't particularly matter. But essentially, what I do is I guide people on journeys and they're, an immersive experience of healing, blending music and then my own brand of spirituality. And then in certain cases, I use the transformative potential of psilocybin to kind of help people. And it helps people shift through consciousness, facilitating emotional release. And throughout it, there's just a deeply resonant atmosphere of healing. And so I've approached it from both a physiological side, a, you know, um, neurobiological side, and then of course there's the indigenous medicinal side. And so collectively with all of that, I'm able to, kind of help people shift through where they're at. I think one of the simplest ways I've found to describe it is I'm a lot like a spiritual personal trainer, because I tell people any one of us could get up and go to the gym right now and move some weights around. And at some point, some muscle would start to grow. We don't know what direction it would grow in, what kind of shape we would get in, but something would happen to us. And then if we made a habit out of that and we were there and we saw someone, who had nice arms, we said, like they have nice arms, I'm going to do what they do. We started copying them, then we would start to grow in the direction that they were growing. But again, we don't know what their diet is. We don't know how often they work. We don't know what weights they're using. So we wouldn't have the same results. So our next step in that evolution would be we can watch movies and go on Instagram and TikTok and watch influencers and we could read books. And even then we're sort of mimicking and nothing's really tailored for us. So the best way to get in shape, if it's what you really wanted to do, would be to get a trainer. Someone who understands exactly where you're at in your life, what your injuries are, what your past is, where you're at, and how to help you move, what your goals are, so that they can build a system for you that moves you in the direction that you want to be going. And so all those things make sense, but the most crucial thing that trainers do that people don't realize is they spot you, you know, and they keep you from getting hurt. And so if I was to train Hillis, for instance, I have Hillis on the bench and we put 225 pounds on the bar and I say, okay, give me 10. And Hillis looks at me and goes, I'm not giving you 10. I'm gonna pick up one of those, it's gonna fall on my head. I go, no, you're gonna give me 10, it's gonna go well. And he says okay because he trusts me and he knows that I'm there with his best interest at heart. And so he picks that weight up and he gives me 10. The thing is he has no idea how much I'm spotting him. And it doesn't matter because neither does his brain and neither does his body. All he knows is he has a visceral experience of, I just bench pressed 225 pounds 10 times. And so the next time he comes to the gym and I go, hey, let's jump on here and give me 10. He's like, yeah, no problem. I've done that before. And he goes into it with a conscious idea of, I've done this before. I know how to do this. Right. And so he comes in and he sits down with confidence and he starts to lift without the immediate doubt, without the skepticism, without the negative self-talk saying, I can't do that, I'm not capable. So I do that for people on a spiritual level, where I spot them through their journey as we face whatever, upper limits they've put on themselves, whatever challenges they've put in their own way, whatever trauma they may have that they've carried forward, and I spot them through it so that they have a successful evolution through each and every one of those moments. It doesn't mean it's fixed. It means they know that they are currently stronger than, better than, bigger than, smarter than, healthier than anything in their past, anything that was ever in their way, and they allow that thing to move out of their way. Because the hardest thing that we ever do in life is a thing we've never done before.
That's so powerful. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. The hardest thing we've ever done in life is what we've never done before. And like that's my experience too. Like when I first started speaking on stage, I would shake because I'm like, oh my God, my company's name is Healerverse. And I literally died of a cocaine overdose. So I'm gonna say that on stage in front of everybody, like right now. And that's how this all triggered. And now it's like, give me the mic, give me the mic, you know? And that's like the same thing with healing too, whenever, and I love like the metaphor of being a personal trainer for your spiritual journey, because you've been there and you've done the work. And to be able to support somebody through that is, first of all, what a gift that you're able to
Yeah.
provide, right? And to be able to support somebody through that and help them to live a better life.
Well,
Yeah.
it's about helping them. It's about helping them help themselves, right? Because, there are people
Yeah,
that said,
but
"Oh,
they
you're a
also get a
guru.
friend. They also get a
Absolutely,
friend,
absolutely,
right?
but
Like
not a
you get that
guru."
friend.
And that's the important distinction. As I tell
Yeah.
everybody, there's nothing that you're capable of getting done with me that you're not capable of getting done without me. It's just you have a friend to go along with you while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And that's a really big distinction that I think that you do a great job of making as well, Trish, where you make sure that everyone feels like they're supported by a friend as opposed to a boss or someone who knows more or someone who's, it's always about, it doesn't matter the knowledge level, the how long you've been doing it, the practitioner status, as it were. It's about we're here in this journey of life, sharing and being kind and supporting each other the way that friends do.
Yeah, and it's really selfless too, because if you think about the energy exchange that occurs, like to hold that amount of space for somebody, regardless of, what they're going through and being able to really tap into them and meet them where they're at. It's a gift, but it also requires a ton of, like you said earlier, uh, us staying spiritually fit as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Although I'm glad you brought that up. It can feel selfless. However, the reality is it's incredibly important that healers receive for their healing. They need to understand that it is an exchange. And I think that
Mm,
that's a mistake a lot of healers make. I know it's a mistake I made for the first 25 years of healing, where I thought, well, I'm good at healing. This is what I'm supposed to do. I have this skill, I have this talent, I have this gift. I must be giving it away. And the reality is that's not how that works. Because when we give away our healing, we're actually creating karma for the person that we're giving it to. It's
mm.
because they haven't had an opportunity to reciprocate, to give back in some way. And so it's really important that people find a way to make sure that there's always exchange and that the exchange is felt to be equal by both parties.
Yeah. I love that too. Yeah, raise your prices.
Well, yes and no, right? So
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I money is never the reason to not work with me because it's never a reason I won't work with someone else. I will accept any level of payment plan that someone wants to come up with because it isn't about, well, you didn't give me my money yet, I'm not going to help you, because the healing is the most important part of it, but it's about that exchange. Because as healers continue to go into something saying, well, I'm going to give all this away and then hopefully you're going to give me something, unconsciously they're creating a new upper limit in their own life. They're putting this glass ceiling on their ability to heal and on their ability to thrive. And then what ends up happening is as they grow, as their business grows, as their reputation grows, and people want to pay them more or give them more, they'll refuse it or they'll walk away from it, or worse, they'll sabotage it because there's a part of them that doesn't understand that they deserve it because they haven't accepted or believed that they've deserved it for so long.
Aw.
And that's, I think, a really challenging thing that healers struggle with.
Mm. So how do people work with you? Like, do you do like a specific amount of sessions, or like can it just be one time, or what's your like medicine?
I I think that's what's great about working with me is that it's one time and all time at the same time. And I'll say exactly what I mean. So when people work with me, there's the initial consult call, and it's just talking about how they found me and what called them to want to talk to me. And then I always ask them, what is it that I can do for you? Because I don't work with everyone who comes to me. There are people that are not in a position to work with me Not that they're not in a position to heal, just not in a position to work with me specifically. And so that's why I love knowing other healers because I can refer them to other people. I can send them to centers. I can kind of give them some reading lists, but I can point them in the direction of what I do think will serve them better because I know that I'm not necessarily the best fit for them. So, but once someone's decided I'm interested, we do an interview, and the interview is either in person or Zoom, and we talk about what it is that they want to work on. And I sort of create a list of the things that they've told me. And then while we're in that interview, I kind of intuit some things from them that they need that maybe they were afraid to ask for, or maybe they didn't know that they needed. And
Mm.
that's when the work starts. So even though they could be in another state, they could be in another country, I start creating their playlist because all of my journeys are guided by a specific playlist that's made for each individual that I work with, which is also part of why I only work one on one because there are no two people who need the exact same healing, who have the exact same trauma, even if they've come from the same family, even if they're in the same relationship, they need to be shifted differently. And so it's important that I work with people as individuals, which is the only way that I work.
Amazing.
So an analogy I think everybody can kind of connect to is we've all had scabs at some point in our life. We've all scraped our knee or our elbow or whatever it is, and we've all picked at our scabs. And it hurts, especially when they're dry. We start bleeding again. Sometimes we're ripping out hairs while we're doing it, but it really hurts. So what's always worked is when we're in the shower and we're in the pool or we're having fun or we're swimming in the ocean and it gets soft and it just falls off and we look down and oh, it's gone. I didn't even realize. So that's what me beginning the playlist does is it softens the scabs because the beginning of each journey is we go in and we remove all of the scabs and remove them all at once. We also cut out all the necrosis, all remove all the infection, all the pus, all the negative energy that's inside of someone. And for someone who's been hurting for a long time, that can be a lot. It is a very challenging part of the journey. And it's usually the part where people go, oh, never mind, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I always, as many times as I warn people, the beginning is the hardest. It always seems to kind of hit them in that way. Once we've removed those scabs and the pus and, like I said, the necropathy, all that stuff, we then take medicine and we lay it throughout. And the medicine is, again, it's specific music, it's specific energy from me, it's work from the client. And we go into all the places and we make sure that's all kind of swathed in the medicine. Then the third part of the journey is we cover it with a salve, like you put Aquaphor over something. And then we bandage it, we wrap it up to kind of keep it safe and make sure nothing else gets to it. And then the fifth part of the journey is we seal it with kisses and prayers and, sana, 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 and all the little things that you want to do to make things better. And then the client goes to sleep because they're very tired. It's been a very long evening. And then I go home or I go back to my hotel if I'm serving in their city and I do a little bit more work on them while they're sleeping and I clear my energy. And then I come back in the morning and we do reintegration. And reintegration can be an hour. I did have one reintegration session that was actually longer than the actual journey itself. And that's just because I was working with someone who, had OCD and wanted a lot of data and wanted to understand every little aspect. And if that's what they want, then that's what we want. That's how we spend that time. But that time is their own. And then once we complete reintegration, which is, answering questions, interpreting things that happened in the journey, I sort of let them know what to expect in the coming hours, in the coming days, in the coming weeks. So I'm a curandero is very specifically what I am. And a curandero is different than a vegetalista or a shaman or a medicine woman or a medicine man or a maestra. And the primary difference is that the relationship between curandero and client is for life. And so that means that after the first meeting, once we've agreed to work together, we are connected. After the bill's been paid, we are connected, right? Now you can have an incredible ayahuasca ceremony with a beautiful shaman in Central South America or even in Florida and have a beautiful experience, ask some questions, then go home. And then you're like, oh, wait, there's all this other stuff I wanted to work on. Great, no problem. Pay for another session, take some more time off of work, come down to this kind of like you have to do it all over again. And that's not how it works with me. We do the work. Once I'm in, I'm in. So you can call me, you can text me, email me, meet up in person, and we can continue to talk through things as your life kind of progresses. And it doesn't require another sitting, it doesn't require another serving or another session. At that point, we've created a bond and a language between ourselves that we're able to work through whatever it is you need to work through. So I love therapy. Cognitive therapy, I think, is a beautiful resource on this planet. And also, it is so flawed. And I would say that the biggest flaw is you finally find someone you can trust, someone you can sit with and that you want to talk to, and that you trust them and they say, okay, tell me everything. So you sit in their office and you start unpacking all your stuff and they go, ding, time's up. Okay, see you later. And you're like, wait a minute, all my stuff that was all neatly packed in my head is now all over your office. And what am I supposed to do? And they're like, oh, just toss it back in there and go back out in the world and then come back later. It'll be just fine. And that's terrifying. And it hurts. It usually hurts a lot. So then you come back that next time and you're like, I'm only bringing out a thimble. And we'll see if we get through the thimble before I show you anything else. So therapy can take years. In sessions with me, we don't run out of time. And that's because we create time. So in my sessions, there's very little talking. The best sessions have no talking at all because we are connected on a what most people would call a telepathic level. And so we're allowed to communicate in pictograms and in graphic blocks. We're able to communicate, a life of needs or a life of pain in one expression, which allows us to then work on the other lives, the other versions of you, because while the world has become obsessed with multiverses in the last, I don't know, decade of Marvel movies and whoever else wants to say there's 20 of us, the reality is we've had multiverses, our entire existence. And what they consist of is you had a choice to make. Do I say yes to getting married or do I take that job I wanted? There's a version of you that went off and took that job. And you think about that version of you all the time and you wonder and you have questions and that version pulls at you. And if you're not at peace with all of those versions, it can destroy your mind. It can tear you apart, pull you out of the happiness that you have in your current life. And so we find a way to blend all those things together. So the session, I do both medicated and non-medicated journeys, but the medicated session is 6 to 8 hours long. The non-medicated journey is 3 to 5 hours long. But the reality is that because we are always connected, people can always come back for more. So that's why I say it's one serving, but it truly is a lifetime connection. The other day or the other week now, I pulled into a car wash and a client came to mind. And I called him and I said, he didn't answer. And I said, hey, I know you've got 13 things going on right now, but I just want to let you know that all those plates that are spinning, they all have enough momentum to stay up on their own, and you don't need to be running back and forth. So just address them one at a time, whichever one's closest, or whichever one you feel like doing, and know that the other ones will still be there when you finish. And then I hung up. And he called me, I want to say the next day, maybe the day after, in tears. And he said, how did you know? And I said, how did I know what? He's like, I literally had 13 things going on. Like, exactly. Like, am I still in medicine space? I said, no, I haven't. It's been 18 months since you were in medicine space. This is just our shared connection at this point. Because the reality is that all humans were telepathic. We were telepathic for most of our existence. And then collectively, we decided we didn't like being honest with each other. And so we turned it off. But we still have a remnant of that. You think of someone in a few minutes, they text you or call you, or you get an inclination that maybe you should do this instead of that, and then you immediately find out why. That's what that connection still is. That's the remnants of your telepathic abilities that are still innate inside of you. So that's how I work with clients. It's a long-standing thing, but it's worth it. It's a beautiful community. I've served over 100 people in this new modality. I serve sex workers, I serve soldiers with PTSD, I serve parents with PTSD. No, I do serve parents, but I serve them as individuals. I think it's a beautiful way to help them with parenting. But again, they have their own things that they need to work on. and then be able to come together as a couple. And so I work with them separately first. And then once they've both worked with me, we can have collective conversations together. It's much easier. Um, One of the groups I'm most proud to serve is the way that therapists need a therapist and go to a therapist. I serve a lot of shaman. I serve a lot of maestros. I serve, people out of Peru and Ecuador, Brazil, and Costa Rica, all of whom serve ayahuasca and retreat centers and things like that. I have a lot of really beautiful relationships with them, and it's been an honor for me to serve them because they do so much work for so many people. And, I had always wondered and hoped that they were getting what they needed. And then I became friends with a maestro in Peru. And as we got to know each other better, he asked me one day, he's like, I would love to sit with you. And I said, what? But you do ayahuasca and all this other stuff. He's like, I'd love to sit with you. And after he sat with me, he talked to me about the difference between what sitting with me was like versus serving Aya, because that's not something that I do or something that I'm called to. And he began talking to his friends and to his community, and I started getting more and more calls. So now that's a large swath of a community that I help.
Wow, thank you so much for for everything you just said. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, literally. And I do want to say too, I just did a little Instagram like live and then I posted it. And one of the things that I've like, that's very concerning too is like even to get into a therapist is like a 2 month wait
Mm,
sometimes. You know
of
what I
course,
mean?
of course.
And like we're here right now. We're here. Like it's come to the round table, even just come,
Yeah, and there's so
And
many healers who will just help people. Sometimes you just need one conversation. It's not even about having a session.
yeah, yeah. And it's also just feeling part of, like come be part of, how do we help people? And there's community. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on right now too in the ethers. Like I can feel it. I've been sleeping hell a lot.
Mm.
But yeah, like, just being a solution that is really ancient, right? Ancient solution is and normal. And I love that you mentioned telepathy. Like I literally like when you actually mentioned that, I started saying something to somebody telepathically, and I know it's received. I don't even know if they know that they can do that, but consciously, but yeah, like I think they do know that, but I don't know
Well,
if they know how to identify that.
the way that it works, I mean, they do know it, right? The way
Yeah.
it works, though, is that so a lot of people don't recognize this, but your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are two different people.
Mm.
Not just two different minds, they're two different people. They actually have different astrological charts, and they have, therefore, different needs and different wants. So your subconscious mind is born 3 months before your conscious mind. It is active and it is running your body. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've got this body and I'm living this life and I'm so excited. And then when the rest of you is born, the conscious mind crashes through the door and says, oh, look at my body that I live in all by myself and that I can do whatever I want with and I don't have to listen to anybody. And so as a result, what ends up happening is the conscious mind and subconscious mind actually don't get along because the conscious mind is a bully to the subconscious mind. The subconscious says, oh man, we should slow down. We're really tired. The conscious mind says, I don't have time to slow down. I've got to go to work. And the kids have this, and I've got this, and I've got that. And then the subconscious mind says, man, our body's running really lean right now. We need to get some food in it. I don't have time to eat right now, or I'll just, grab a hamburger pill from McDonald's. I'm not going to do what I need to do. So what ends up happening is the subconscious mind uses the only tool that it has, and it says, okay, well, let me give you an ulcer, and then let me see what you do. Let me see if you'll slow down then. Oh, you don't want to slow down? Okay, let me give you cancer and then let me see what you'll do. Let me give you migraines. Let me give you nightmares. Let me start messing with your ability to function mentally. And it's your body rejecting itself. It's your body rejecting, hey, I need to be listened to. So the primary thing that I do in my work is I bring the conscious and subconscious mind on a level playing field and sort of reintroduce them to each other and say, hey, look, you two are sharing the same body and you two should listen to each other. because you two serve each other. And so throughout the journey, they're both on this level playing field. They see all the same information, they get all the same healing. But because doubt, self doubt, and external doubt, because skepticism lives in our conscious mind, there are very high end concepts like telepathy that are held on to by the subconscious. And so when the journey is over, the subconscious retreats to where it belongs, which is in the background, because that's its job. And the conscious mind comes to the front. The difference is now the conscious mind knows to trust and listen to the subconscious mind. And so whenever the subconscious says, okay, we're ready now, we're more open, we're listening, it starts to eke things out as intuition. Little things come out to us. Now, most people call them their guides. What most people don't realize is that we are our own guide. But from the time we are born, we are taught not to trust ourselves, right? Our parents say, don't do it on your own. Ask me, ask a parent, ask an adult, ask a teacher, ask someone else because you don't know. You know, we go to school, the teachers say, you don't know anything. I'm here to tell you everything. You don't know anything other than what I'm telling you. Then we get our first job. Ask a supervisor, ask a manager. So we are taught, it is drummed into us to not trust ourselves. And therefore, whenever we have our own ideas and our own intuition comes up, we're like, well, I can't listen to that. It must be wrong. I have to go to someone else. And it's not accurate, you know? It's wonderful to get other people's guidance, advice, suggestions, but we know what's best for us. And if we're not sure, we can ask our subconscious, because our subconscious is connected to source and will always be connected to source. So we have our own direct connection to source. So Trish, when you send somebody a message telepathically, their subconscious absolutely receives it. Now, if their conscious mind is ready for their subconscious mind to send it out
Mm.
and give it to them, it becomes the question. That's why people don't receive it. You know, it's kind of like they're on airplane mode. You're sending all the messages, but until they turn their phone on to receiving, they're not going to get them, right?
Mm.
And it's not a fault thing. It's not a better than thing. It's literally just I haven't used this technology yet. I'm not ready for this yet. You know, it's why people, have to live multiple lives, whether it's reincarnation or whether it's multiple lives in the same lifetime, where they grow up, they get married, they get a divorce, they go out, they do the single life, then they get married again, then they do divorce again. Those are all different lives. Those are different partnerships you're putting together. Those are different iterations of yourself that you're exploring because you or your subconscious said, there's something here for me to learn, for me to explore. And so that's, part of what that is. And the challenge with my work is not everybody's comfortable trying something that could be medicated. They're afraid of drugs or what that is. And it's interesting because in the zeitgeist right now, so many corporations and CEOs are talking about microdosing, and that's becoming a popular thing. And so it's coming out there. But that's a very different animal. And then the other question I get is, well, I know people who go to Ibiza every year and they're doing all kinds of drugs. They're not enlightened. And I go, well, yeah, but that's also a different animal. It's because they're not doing anything to ground the experience after they're done. Right. So it's not that what they're doing isn't accurate. It's that they don't do anything to ground it. They don't create any sort of reintegration period around it. They don't create any ongoing support around it. They go into it with the intention of having fun and they can have a great time. But why that matters so much is there's a part of our brain called the default mode network. And it's one piece in the front, two on the sides, and one in the back. And it is responsible for all metacognitive thought in the human brain. When Tony decided to put that sweatshirt on today, it was that part of her brain that was like, you know what, I like this sweatshirt. I'm going to put this on. It's comfy. It has a hood I can hide if my name gets brought up. It'll be great, right? But that's how we decide what haircut we want. That's how we decide what we want to do. It's also where all negative self-talk lives, right? And I tell people it's called the default mode network because it's active when our brain is not active. So it's essentially it's the screensaver for your brain. And it can turn on throughout the day. You're on autopilot, running errands. Default mode network can kick in. It can, you're walking around the house one day, wake up in a great mood. Now, don't go anywhere. Nothing happens, right? around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you're so mad at yourself and you feel so bad and you have all these insults coming at you for no reason. It's because, like I said, it's 4 parts. And so we start sending this information around and around. It goes from the front to the side, to the back, to the side, and it just spirals, right? And that's why we spiral. We get into this place of this information going around in our head. Well, the thing that people don't realize about that spiral is it creates a groove and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, like the grooves of a record of an album. And so most of us are living down here in the bottom of this valley. So when we go to do a retreat, we start climbing up out of that valley. We go down to do, we go to a seminar, we start climbing up out of that valley. We start doing work on our own. We read a really good book. We start climbing up out of that valley. But then something happens and bumps us, and we tumble back down to the bottom, and we're like, oh, I guess I live here now. So the use of psychedelics, and while LSD is a psychedelic and can be used for healing, and MDMA is also and put our hand in and go the other way and disrupt that whirlpool. That's what I do, is I take my hand into your whirlpool and I disrupt it by moving you in the other direction. And so that pattern that you've had for 20, 30, 40 years gets disrupted, and we have an opportunity for spontaneous creativity. We can now make a new pattern. Remember, you're not bad at math like you were told in 3rd grade. Let's pretend you are good at math. And now when math comes up, instead of going, nope, I can't do it, and turning your brain off, like, oh, no, no, I can do this. You are creative. You can write. You are strong. You can be an athlete. It is the opposite of what we've been told. And so what happens, and this is the difference between the plant medicine and then those chemical created, psychedelics, is the plant medicine knows where the adjustment needs to be made. So you don't have to know. You don't have to be as consciously knowledgeable about it, because most people aren't. Now, if you know exactly where you need to be adjusted and exactly what that is, then LSD and MDMA can be more helpful. But again, with MDMA, what happens is you get such a rush of dopamine and serotonin that you end up flat on the other side of it. You've got to go through 2 or 3 days of, let me get something back. So it's like it makes it almost like alcohol. It doesn't have the physically damaging effects like on your liver and your physiology in that way, but mentally it does. Psychologically, it absolutely does, because you're feeling suicidal, and then you say, you know what, I want to feel better. Let me take a fun drug like MDMA. Then for 2 or 3 days afterwards, you're not able to create serotonin or oxytocin. You're absolutely going to feel worse. And so it's so important to either surround yourself with people who understand this before you do the practice, or, hopefully people get lucky. But that's what can be scary about that aspect of it. So doing the work in that way where you're creating neuroplasticity, allowing yourself to stretch, it makes the work easier. The same as my work where I'm softening the scabs. We're doing the same work, but why not make it as easy as possible on us? I have a question. I think I'll use you as the example, Trish, just because I know you're great with talking about stuff now. So for you specifically, well, actually, I got to ask you an inappropriate question first. How old are you?
40.
40. Okay, perfect. So for you specifically, somewhere around 3 or 4, there's something that happened to you. We don't have to go into what it was, but there's something that happened to you, something very specific. And in that moment, you were like, nope, that's never happening again. I'm going to protect myself from that because I don't like how that felt. I don't like that experience. I am not doing that again. And so you drew a very hard line in the sand and said, I'm going to protect myself from that. Okay. And that's an important thing to establish. So when I'm talking to groups, because I'm happy to speak to groups, I speak to healers, because this is something that healers can take into their own practices and it really helps them know how to address their clientele. I say, Trish, you're going to you need a CEO to run Healerverse. Okay. And
Yes, please.
I'm going to help you find that. I've narrowed down all the candidates, and I've got 2 candidates for you. And
Really? Is this a true story?
It is a true story,
Oh,
actually. It is
fun.
a true
So then
story.
I don't have to run a company anymore. That sounds good.
There you go. And when's your birthday, Trish?
February 8th, 1985.
Beautiful, February. Okay. So both of them are equally qualified. There's one different or two kind of major differences. So the first candidate has been in their role for 37 years, successfully in their role for 37 years. They really have it down pat. The other candidate has only been in their role for 10 months. Um, so which one do you want to hire?
37 years.
Okay. Oh, wait, I forgot. The person with 37 years is only 3 years old, and the person with 10 months experience is 40 years old. Now, which one do you want to hire?
The one that's 40.
Right. But most of us let the one with 37 years run our life. We let our lives be run by a 2-year-old, right? Because a 2-year-old got hurt, and that 2-year-old says, I'm not letting this happen to me again. And so it runs that part of our life,
Wow.
right? So my birthday is next Friday. And
Happy
so, thank
birthday.
you. So my birthday is next Friday. So next Friday, I will have been 50 for one day. I'm going to be terrible at being 50, but I'm really good at being 2.5. And I'm really good at being 20 months old. And I'm really good at being 15 was a pretty big one. And I'm really good, right? There are so many other ages I was really good at being that what we do is we give the responsibility to that part of us. And what we have to do to move forward is we have to say, thank you to that 2.5 year old. Thank you to that 20-month old and say, I got it from here, right? Which is very different than embracing our inner child.
Yeah.
Because when we embrace our inner child, we keep it with us and we hold it close and we basically enable it and say, yeah, you're right. I'm going to follow you. What we need to do is we need to thank that inner child and release it and let it go because they are no longer in charge of our lives. And if practitioners know this of any modality, they don't have to be able to intuit and identify when something happened in someone's life. But through talking to that person, they can say, where do you think this might have started for you? That person can go back and find it because they know. And then they can say, what else about when you were 20 doesn't work for you anymore? And they'll have a list of things. They'll be like, what did you want to be when you were 20? I wanted a 6 foot and muscle guy and party guy and all this stuff. What do you want now? I want someone who shows up every day, someone who's willing to watch an entire movie with me and wants to learn a new recipe, who will come hang out on the beach and just be with me. Those are very different needs. Well, if we can identify for our clients that the needs of their previous selves are different than their current needs, we can usually help our clients accept letting go of that previous self, recognizing that that previous self no longer serves our current self, which is not an easy thing to do, but
Yeah.
it's absolutely worth it.
It's way worth it. Yeah. It says, like, and I think that I go on healing sprees. And like most recently, I hope that it's like maybe part of Scorpio season and also just like certain like other things that are happening in my life that I'm really starting to also digest some parts of myself that I didn't realize were operating the show or
Mm.
running the show and
Mhm.
kind of like removing that. And then of course consciously it will pop back up and I'm like, nah. So I guess the subconscious is the light of the Scorpio and this conscious is the dark of the Scorpio.
A little bit, but it's more
Okay.
that it's the collective of everything,
Yeah.
right? Not just the dark of, it's the collective of everything.
Fun. Fun.
Do we have time to open it up for questions for anybody that's
Yes,
on?
yes,
If
yes,
there's
yes,
anything anybody wanted to
yes,
ask ahead of time.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Okay.
have like at least like, 5 more minutes. So I'll
Okay,
let you guys go. Yeah, feel free to unmute. I'm gonna get more water.
okay, Trish.
So, Cosmos, it was such a joy hearing you
Thank
and
you.
meeting you, a few weeks ago back in Delray. I really don't have a question per se. It's just that more so of a level of appreciation
Mm,
for the energy that was expressed in this moment, and me getting to know more about you, what you do, and just really sitting in that space and expanding, because I definitely felt a lot of energy and love emanating and moving and expanding. So thank you for taking time and sharing this space with us.
thank you, Hills. I appreciate it.
Mm, you're most welcome.
I'll ask you a question. What are the ways that you um, put the energy back in yourself, that you fill
Yeah.
yourself back up?
So, so it took a while to get to that. I mean, people ask you what you want to do when you're a kid, and everybody has I want to be a fireman or I want to be a superhero, whatever they want to be. When I was a kid, I didn't want to have to go to the same place every day. I didn't want to have to do the same thing every day, and I didn't want to have to wear the same thing every day. And so as a result, I chased that my whole life. And I have found that this work as a spiritual guide and then my work as a filmmaker embodies that perfectly, and they really complement each other. I think that where I was mostly being drained in my life was in my professional life because of challenges in the film industry right now that exist. And so over the course of the last 6 months, the way that I created a new modality, because I couldn't find a healing modality that I wanted to work in, I've created a new production model for making movies. And I'm in the middle of launching that right now, where I'm no longer working with people I don't want to work with, and I'm no longer bending stories or bending myself to fit into other molds, simply because that's not what I'm here for. And so I would say that what that is it's honoring myself in every choice that I make, which over the course of the last 3 months has looked like, removing people from my life that were no longer welcome, and not pouring energy into things that didn't serve me, because even though I have all the time in the universe, I don't have time for that. It's funny because I knew this a long time ago and I just didn't apply it to everything, because when I was a kid I made up an expression, life's too short to dance with ugly girls. And I've just been, dancing with a lot of people I should not have been putting on my dance card, and I don't do that anymore. So that's how I pour into myself now, Joni.
I'm still here then.
That's because that's how important you are. You know that.
Oh, yeah. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody that
No,
came.
thank you for having me, Trish. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I appreciated everything that you said. And like even when we do these round tables, there's always a lot to integrate after also,
Absolutely.
And yeah, and I love you guys so much. And Cosmos, I love you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And keep us posted where you are in the world as
I
you
will,
go.
of course. And
Yeah.
and I invite anybody listening or anybody who finds us at a later date, please feel free to reach out. It's free to talk to me. I'm busy, but I always make time. Time zones don't matter. I don't sleep very much. So, just if you need to have someone to talk to, I'm happy to share time and space with people and help people figure out, what their next best steps might be.
Thank you, you amazing human. I love you so much.
Thank you, Trish.
And yeah, yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.